Hello friends, my name is Satchell like a bag Drakes, and this time around we'll be talking about Grand Theft Auto 5, a title that, for better or worse, is the source of much debate. First and foremost, it's an open world game, which is a genre that often contains a vast virtual geography, an economy, a world of politics, and with those, many possibilities. See, what makes a video game not a film is interactivity. The power to choose can sometimes be referred to as player agency, and outcomes of a game can in many cases be triggered exclusively because of the player's choice. With this is the chance to take moral or immoral paths to different outcomes. Very much like anything in modern development, GTA 5 as software is a series of complex if-then statements. If I get this house, then I lose a significant portion of the money I saved. Or, if I bump this cop car, then I'll get arrested. Rather than a more primitive environment that chooses your fate for you, GTA was designed with the understanding that any desire a human might have in the real world should be replicated as analogous as possible in the digital one. From a technical perspective, this feat is venerable, but from a humanistic perspective, this capacity is complicated. It's more complicated that it's created within a medium that was once associated exclusively with kids' toys. This video essay can't serve as a formal defense of Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto 5, from my perspective, doesn't have enough redemptive quality in its narrative to be labeled as defensible for the arguments that I'm about to make. What I plan on stating about it out of the gate is that it is wildly misunderstood, primarily because it's a video game. On many fronts, it's a glossy spectacle film made to be accessible to as many people as possible, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's not my personal cup though. However, as far as populace opinion is concerned, Grand Theft Auto 5 is essentially viewed and criticized as the representation of all games that contain some semblance of violence in it. That includes BioShock Infinite and similar games, and a rejection of games like that is an unfortunate one. So what are many appalled at? The portrayal of prostitution in excess, the portrayal of misogyny in excess, the portrayal of gang violence in excess, and the portrayal of murder in excess. If I try to defend any of these topics within the context of video games, I will fall under the same brand of scrutiny that spawned this very controversy. Which is why we're going to talk about The Wolf of Wall Street. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio, The Wolf of Wall Street is a biographical film directed by Martin Scorsese about Jordan Belfort's career as a stockbroker in New York City. Through a string of white lies, blatant lies, deceit, and dastardly planning, he commits multiple accounts of fraud on Wall Street, leading to an unimaginable amount of wealth, momentary demise, and a return to deceit to earn more wealth afterward. Belfort is largely unapologetic of his greed, and it's because of this that the film has been criticized harshly for glorifying excess and endorsing excess. Scorsese doesn't end his film with a bow like Goodfellas. Belfort is never punished or revealed to have a self-realized broken personality. It's not given to us that there's an internal sadness, emptiness, or longing by the actions he's committed. This brand of art has been referred to by publications like The Verge as post-apocalyptic pop, which is essentially a song or film that explores excessive luxuries of debauchery and lavish living without defaming it or acknowledging any of the consequences that might follow. But the fact that there isn't a grand finale life lesson to the story is fine. The point of excess is its very definition. It's too much. It's exhausting. It's overwhelming, it's vile, it's in your face, and increasingly unattractive with every scene. The mere repetition of these gaudy lifestyle montages suck the glamour out of each moment as the film adds another. Juxtapose that to moments of ignorance and grief, and the point is clearly found. The Wolf of Wall Street was not prescriptive, it was descriptive. And consequently, Martin Scorsese was portraying a lifestyle, not endorsing one. He created a window for us to look through into someone's life. It reminded me of when New York journalist Paul Miller gave up the internet for a year to find himself, and upon self-reflection with his journalist friend Justin McElroy, realized what an honest story looks like.
You live in a beautiful neighborhood, and I can't really expect to ever do this well.
As far as your wife giving you advice, I think I started having more success when I stopped feeling like there was a narrative to my life. I think once you let go of that idea, then first off, you stop seeing yourself as like the most important thing in your narrative. You know, you see yourself as more of a component. There's no arc to my story. There's no like climax or anticlimax or denouement. So trying to find where things connected or like what made sense in my arc didn't really make a lot of sense. And once I let go of that, I started having more success or became happier.
Scorsese's story arc, very much like real life, didn't have a knowledge of everything in Act 3. There was no moral of the story. What we got was a piece of the story to digest on our own. Why? Because this film has a rating exclusively for adults. It's rated R, and as adults, we know better. What I find interesting about this is that populist opinion knows this already. There were just as many articles praising The Wolf of Wall Street for its artistic merit. But for some reason, it doesn't register with video games. The Guardian has multiple posts digging into the moralistic deviancy of Grand Theft Auto V, yet the title of their coverage for The Wolf of Wall Street is No Moral Center? So what? Which leads us to Dietrich Bonhoeffer on ethics. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a historically recognized German pacifist. He was partially known for standing so openly and strongly against the Nazi dictatorship's genocidal persecution of the Jews that he abandoned his pacifism to plan and execute the assassination of Hitler. Heavy stuff. He was unfortunately arrested and executed in his attempt, but prior to this, he wrote a book on ethics that was never finished. In his book, he outlines that there was no mistake in him going against his pacifism. He consciously suspended a component of his belief system in light of the understanding that justice was an uncompromisable necessity for all people, and that an essential part of human ethics is knowing when to suspend one's humanistic ethics in service of something greater. In this instance, it was for the justice of an oppressed party. Søren Kierkegaard also had quite a few words on ethics through his own study of it in the book Either Or, where he states that man is either in a perpetual state of either or life of action. He states that one who merely contemplates a truth is apt to become a traitor like Judas, the point being that man must act according to the choices he makes for himself. In Bonhoeffer's case, it's a very tangible, relevant, political, and physiological commitment. Assassination, essentially. This suspension can hold up in a much smaller and less significant capacity for how one interprets art and entertainment. All of this to say that sometimes a bigger picture of morality and seeing how it dovetails with the way that the world works can add perspective. Okay, if you were me watching this video, there would be alarms going off, or at least there should be. So let me clarify some things. This is undoubtedly a lofty parallel to draw between a plotted assassination of Hitler and level-headed discernment of violence in a video game. And let me remind you that at this point, we're not talking about Grand Theft Auto anymore. It's a challenge to defend a game written to be so incredibly open. These battles are less physical, but that doesn't rob the importance of critical thinking and psychological speculation instead. The point is this. I'd argue that there's great value to be found in humbling one's ethics system for the sake of acquiring new information. I'm not perfect at it, I'm not really good at it, but it's something that I found really valuable, and I see other people benefit from it all the time. This is essentially what art is excellent at doing for people. You know, we sort of have these like sentinels built up around the things that we believe, and it can be really hard for us to like budge on them, especially if it's like hot button issues. But I found things like a song or watching something really captivating can oftentimes circumvent those sentinels, or like go underground, or find like a back alley into our ideas and really make us question the things that we do, or question why we tick the way that we do. Which brings me to my second point, the alternative to letting reality tell a story. Let's take a glance at Christian film. An example of what the world might look like if we never suspended our ethics in order to tell a greater story is found in the current state of Christian film. Old Fashioned is a film about an unorthodox romance between a frat boy saved by Jesus named Clay and a free spirit named Amber. Clay doesn't believe in dating, or even in sharing the same room alone with a woman. This film is about him attempting to show Amber his brand of love. Old Fashioned shares a spine with 50 Shades of Grey in that it involves a dude with unusual practices teaching his love interest his way of romance, and they're both equally interesting in that regard on paper. Neither film is interesting to me personally, but the premise of romance in this hyper-traditional capacity is welcome. However, the thesis statement and marketing strategy of Old Fashioned is far from a desire to stand for something as much as it's like a clean alternative to what's popular. It's a contrarian effort. It exists simply to pridefully stand against culture because reasons, which can be found in the trailer. The producer of the film endorsed it as going up against big budget, blockbuster competition that offers a dark tale on love. Old Fashioned puts romance and respect in the heart of relationships. In the words of Brandon Ambrosino from Vox Media, you get the feeling that Old Fashioned owes its entire existence to 50 Shades of Grey. It's as if the Christian movie industry pays attention to mainstream cinema just long enough to see what it's up to before raising funds to do slightly different versions of the same thing, only with less famous actors, more Jesus, and rocking chairs. There's always rocking chairs. Any person even vaguely familiar with evangelical subcultures will recognize the trend of copying and sanitizing whatever pop culture is doing. This trend belies a certain impulse within evangelical Christians to separate the entire world into two categories: sheep and goats, wheat and chaff. Christian screenwriter Brian Godawa says, "They don't know how to embody their messages in the story. They have to hear the literal words of the gospel." All of this to say, when you live in a world that doesn't suspend ethics for substance or the furthering of unfamiliar or even uncomfortable knowledge, you don't have authentic stories. You have disingenuous finger wagging. And it's ironic because even virtuous divine texts have dark humanistic vehicles that drive us to something valuable. In Judaism, the Song of Songs in the Ketuvim contains explicitly detailed sexual intimacy, but it's about faithfulness. The Book of Lamentations contains dark depression, but it's about hope and value beyond the tangible. Look, jury's out on what the production of Grand Theft Auto is ultimately about, but the real kicker about it is that it doesn't actually matter. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is an open world game. Emergent gameplay and objectives are birthed out of interacting with Grand Theft Auto 5, nullifying the importance of Rockstar's intentions. Games don't hold hands as tightly as films do, and it doesn't seem like everyone's gotten the memo yet.